Namaskar. Welcome to this session on network security and forensics. Until now, we have been doing a lot of talking about intrusion detection system, intrusion prevention system, etc. What we will do in this session is we will install the well known intrusion detection system, the SNORT. Since the live installation process is going to take quite an amount of time depending on the connection speed and other things, what we will do is that we will go ahead and install and we will go ahead and install it offline, and we will actually record that session and play to you. So, in that way, even though the recording will be for about 5 to 10 minutes, what will happen is that in your case, for example, if you get everything correct and your internet speed is quite good, you should be able to complete it within maximum of about half an hour. What we have done in our cases, we have installed a virtual machine on top of our Linux box, and then inside that virtual machine we are going to install SNORT. Okay. If you just look at the screen right now, you can see that on the left hand side, okay, of this we have given a bunch of commands. I mean, these are all the commands you can execute to install SNORT in your machine. Now, we will go through these commands one by one, and on the right hand side, okay, this is where our command execution will take place. Since we had already installed it before, actually this will complete very quickly, but then in real time, okay, you will take about 5 minutes around for each of the step approximately. I mean, not all the steps will take 5 minutes, you should be taking about half an hour for installing SNORT. Now, we will go through why we want to do this. Why do we want to do this? We want to do this to show you that as a forensic expert, okay, you should be able to install tools and work with those tools. So, what we will do is we will just start off with the installation process. The first two lines of the installation process are the first two commands that we are going to execute is general before you install or update any of your Ubuntu machine. Now, please remember the commands could be slightly different for other flavors of Linux. Therefore, we would request that you have a Ubuntu flavor running on a virtual box. If you have Kali Linux, probably the commands could be slightly different if it is not already installed. Okay, so, let us start with the installation process. So, first we will have to update our OS, okay, and this will go something like this. Once you give a sudo apt-get update, it will go and update the repositories, and in the next step it will upgrade to the latest version of the file. So, let us cut and paste it. So, since it is a video recording, I mean, we will cut and paste it and then let this be over. So, once this is done, we will cut and paste this upgrade process. So, in the upgrade, so then see in your case, for example, in our case, for example, it has already upgraded. So, we have actually executed this before to ensure that we do not spend a lot of time showing you the live installation, but in your case probably, I mean, you should get something like this, okay, whatever is shown, the following packages have been kept back or something like this, and 0 upgraded, 0 newly installed. So, in our case it is 0 upgraded and 0 newly installed, because I have already done the upgrade, I am attempting it again. But in your case probably, I mean, it will say this many packages have been upgraded and this many packages have been installed. Now, since we are going to get the source code and compile, what we are going to do is we are going to install the appropriate libraries that are needed for compiling the source code of SNORT. Okay. So, we are going to have a bunch of libraries. This is the first set of libraries we are going to compile. Okay. So, one of the things you should note is that you could actually I mean, I have just split it into two parts. This is the first part, first set of libraries that I am installing. I am installing OpenSSH server, ETH tool, and then libpcap, etc. And then we also have the next set of libraries. So, here is the next set of libraries, you have to install Bison, Flex, these are parsers and things like that. Okay. So, in our case, as I told you, I mean the installation is complete because we have already installed all these packages. So, we get out very quickly, but probably in your case you might take quite an amount of time to install these libraries, because these libraries have to be downloaded from the repository and then installed on your machine. So, here is the next set of libraries that we are installing. So, in order to quicken the process, I am cutting and pasting the command. So, here is the next set of libraries. Now, please note down the names of these libraries. I mean, if you make a mistake in one of the libraries, it may not get installed, and you know all these logs might go off very quickly, and you might miss installing one of these libraries, and there could be lot of problems once you miss some libraries. I mean, when you compile the program, there will be compilation error, then you will go into bunch of loops. So, please ensure that there is no mistake in any of the steps. The other thing that I have seen with many of the engineers is that if some step shows an error, then people will leave that step and go to the next step. Please understand that in computer science, every step has to be followed during installation process meticulously. It is not a probability, the machine does not work on probability, and it cannot make a guess that such libraries may be made available or would be available, etc. You have to make these libraries available, therefore, do not skip any step. Okay. Please install. I hope you know the shell command to show whether the previous command has been successful. So, use those kind of commands and get the installation correct. Okay. So, the next item that we are going to do is we are going to actually get the DAQ library, which is part of SNORT. And see, one of the things that you should know about this step is, okay, currently it is using the version 2.0.6. Now, you can see this 2.0.6 in your SNORT website. Okay. Now, see, if for example, if this course is 2 or 3 months later, if you go through the same course and you watch this video, now this version would have changed. So, be careful about the version number. So, if you look at this, this is 2.0.6. Okay, this is the current version number that we have got. I mean, this .1 is coming because I had already saved it, I am trying to do it again. So, that is why this .1 is coming, do not worry about it. For you, it will show it as DAQ dash some version number, okay, and .tar.gz has been downloaded. So, this will have to download this file, and then we have to go inside this directory. So, we have to untar it. So, we will untar it, and then the untarring will create this directory called DAQ 2.0.6. Then we go inside that directory. So, once we go inside the directory, then, and this contains the whole source code, you can take a look at the source code for DAQ, but then what you do is you just have to configure and start do a make. So, once you do a configure, it will show you bunch of compiler options and what is the kind of compiler, it more or less test the compiler and get the environment ready for compilation of the source code. So, once it is done, then we will go ahead and do a make of this. So, we will go ahead and do a make. So, once see this make will take quite some time. So, in our case we have already done it, and so therefore, it is over immediately. Now, once you do a make, and then you have to do something known as a make install. That means, you actually after you do the make, okay, the source code gets compiled, it will create bunch of libraries. Now, these libraries have to be put in some location. So, that is exactly, now we are using all default location. Okay. Probably, I mean, but I had told you that putting anything in default location is bad, but that is okay, because we are going to just for training purposes, but in real life I would suggest that you you use some of the configuration parameters that are given along with this make, and then install it in a different directory, not in the directory which is given by default. I mean, so sometimes what could happen is, if you skip the default directory, the software may not work properly and all that, but you have to fix all those problems. For security purposes, do not install in the default directory, but since this training purposes, we will go ahead and install it in the default directory. Now, this step actually would have taken a lot of time for you, and other thing that you should know is, you should have, see, the next step is you have to install these directories. Okay. Now, see, this installation might need your permission. Okay. So, that is why in order to avoid any confusion, I have put sudo. Sudo is your super user privileges when I am executing these commands. So, I have given you the super user privileges for to ensure that I do not face any problems. If you are an admin level user, then you could actually go ahead and install these shared libraries. So, if you do this, so it will install all the shared libraries at the right location. Okay. And I mean, please follow some of those instructions that are given on the screen. Okay. So, please follow, you have to add these library path environment, you have to do all these things, please follow. And then once you do this, then we have to download our SNORT code. So, let us go to that website and then download the SNORT code. The latest version of SNORT we are downloading is 2.9.11, and please and 2.9.11 and revision number 1. So, please ensure that if you want to, because usually you type this command and it says file not found, I mean that is the error. In that case, go to the SNORT's website and see what latest version they have uploaded. So, let us download this SNORT file, and here also we are downloading the source. Okay, and then it just gets connected and then it just downloads the SNORT file. So, let us wait until it gets downloaded. So, it has got downloaded, then we go ahead and do expand this file. Okay. If you look at this, this is the source code of SNORT. So, you can see all those .h files and all that, and then go to the SNORT directory. Okay, and install configure SourceFire and then enable SourceFire and then start the compilation process. So, I can go ahead and then do the enable the SourceFire, then I do a make after this, and then finally, I do a make install. Then you have to get all the libraries in place. Okay, configure the libraries in place, the dynamic libraries and things like that. Okay, so, it will take some time, I mean, and so let us do a make, and make should be over very quickly because we already made it, and then we will do a make install. Okay. So, we will go ahead and do a make install, and hopefully this should also complete, and then we will configure the libraries. Okay. And then finally, we will provide a link from user sbin snort, so that you need not add the path. So, you just provide a link from snort. So, in this case also you might have to use link minuses. Now, in our case it will say it is already available because we already tested it. So, the file already exists. Okay. And finally, here is the last step. If you have done everything correctly, okay, hopefully, then you can issue this command called snort and then minus capital V. So, you go ahead and issue this command, then it should say something like this, okay, version 2.9.11.1, and then it has SourceFire and it is part of Cisco's, all these copyright messages, what libpcap version it uses, what zlib version it uses and all that. So, if you have done this, then you are on the safe side. Okay, you have installed it properly. What should we do after this? That is the next question. So, we had seen that you have to configure snort. So, if you want to configure snort, you have to get a bunch of rules for snort to work on. So, what should snort capture, what should it do once it captures a packet. I think we did spent quite an amount of time regarding the rules of snort. So, the next step after this is to configure the snort rules, and we have to come up with certain policies what we want to do. We will have to configure the snort rules based on the policy. So, these have to be written into specific directories of snort, and you could have something known as a whitelist, which means whatever you allow. You could have something known as a blacklist, whatever you do not allow. Then you can have bunch of rules for filtering and all these things. What we will do is we will see that in a separate section. So, until now you should have got this correct. Okay. Once you have got this right, you have got your institution detection system installed and feel happy about it. So, in the next session actually we will look at getting some snort rules and see how to make snort works. Thank you very much.